Hello, Covenant Church, friends, neighbors, and people that we might not know yet. Today, in our episode of Digital Discipleship, we're going to be talking about something very near and dear to all of us, and specifically to Pastor Andy Langdon. And it's how to build relationships. What makes relationships work? What should we be focusing on? And what are some practical tips for living this out in our day to day lives? So you're not going to want to miss this one. Stick around and check this out. So relationships can be great, they can be difficult. And here to help us work through this is one of my favorite people, the one and only Pastor Andy Langdon.
Hey,
Welcome,
good
Andy.
morning, John. How are you? Good to see you.
I am amazing. I've got coffee and I've got my Paul Blart cup. Um,
Nice, very good.
so I am.
Are you a more of a mall cop 1 or 2 guy? Which one's
Oh boy, I'll tell you what. I want a
your
3.
original?
The fans
Okay.
have like a cult and
Yeah.
cult following, and they want to do Blart of Darkness, and I am for it.
Okay.
So, boy, I think that in 2 there are funnier characters.
Yeah.
Um, but I just love Kevin James, and I don't care who knows it. He's
There you go.
hilarious. So, my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah.
Uh, but we are here today to talk about relationships. Now, relationships can be tricky in that we are all affected by sin, granted. We're all different. We all have different personalities. But I think this is a really great topic. And I want to show you a tile here. What do you see in this tile?
I see Raed gets. Wait, what did I say? Oh, maybe Grace. Is that what?
Exactly right.
Okay,
Re-
gotcha.
Relationships can be tricky. And I originally thought you were a board game fan. I hate board games. But it's actually your wife and my wife actually
Yeah.
like games.
Yeah.
So you have experience in this realm, we clarified.
Here's the reason, though. I want to give you a background to that.
Okay.
I have a traumatic experiences. So my grandma
Oh,
loved board games and loved beating her grandchildren at board games. And so when we would play games with my grandma, she was very competitive. And she would also many times accuse her grandchildren of cheating at such board games. And so I grew up not really appreciating them. And so I have that in my heart of like these back flashes of grandma being like, no, that's the wrong card, or you did this. And so anyways, I
yeah.
love my grandma. She's with Jesus.
Oh, good.
But she loved her board games and she loved to win at all costs. So
There was
I
a
have a hard thing. So yeah.
checker throwing incident that took grandma to heaven. But in our house, my dad and I used to play this game called Abalone, and you had to push
Okay.
these little balls like off the thing, and so many could push whatever. Boy, the fights that we had. We actually used to play checkers competitively, and if you know anything about checkers, there is no skill
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
checkers. It's like
Yeah.
who's better at tic-tac-toe. There's only so many ways you can do it. But we would get in such big battles that we had to stop playing. Like we just
Yeah.
agreed that it would be
Yeah.
better not to play. So yes, board games can be they can be brutal. And I also think there is a sense of pride that you have to watch yourself for
Oh,
as
yeah.
believers.
Yeah.
And you've modeled that really well through competition, through different events where you really don't get to stop being a Christian just because you're playing a board game or a sport. And I think sometimes people don't handle that so well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So thank you for that. But relationships are tricky. And so as
Yeah.
we look at this board, this is clearly a Scrabble board. And I had a few words put on here. Do you see the 2 key ones for today in there?
Probably grace in a relationship or grace building, maybe relationship
Yep,
building. Yeah.
building
Yeah.
relationships, grace. I
Yeah.
actually had it spell love, and it spelled it Levive. I don't even know.
Okay.
That's not a word,
Yeah.
Scrabble AI.
Yeah.
But anyway, yes, if there's any secret messages in there, I apologize. That was not our intent. But building relationships is difficult. So I
Yeah.
want to start with this question, because we want to start, I guess, from God's perspective here first. Um, can you see that question on your side?
Yeah. Yeah. How
Great.
many persons does one God exist? Yeah.
Right. And so first, God is relational. And so we talk about relationships because God is relational. So in your view, what makes this topic so important?
Yeah. A couple things. One, I think we need to talk through this because I think sometimes as a church, Covenant specifically, and as the church, like all the churches, I think we talk about relationships, we talk about the gospel, we talk about sharing the gospel, we talk about proclaiming, all of those kinds of things. I think we talk about it in very general terms at times, and it's not overly helpful, I think. Because I think sometimes I'm guilty of this as well, so I'll start with myself. There are times we just say, go talk about Jesus, go proclaim the gospel, go do this thing. But we don't really often kind of talk about the nitty gritty, like how we do that. What does it look like? What are the practical steps for that? How do I walk across the street and talk to my neighbor? How do I build these relationships? I think it's really important that we do talk about the how. Also, I think it's really important because a couple of things for me specifically. One, I think the older you get as an adult, the harder it is to start relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're like, hey, you like teasing that girl, I like teasing that girl, we're best friends and we're best friends forever. Like, it's, as a kid, it seems a little
That was your
more
hobby
easier.
too. I
Yeah,
was really
so it's
good
like
at that.
that. Like, I like rocks, you like rocks, we're best
Mhm.
friends forever. But as you get to an adult, like, it's really hard to start fresh in relationships. It's really awkward. You don't know how to begin the conversations. And then specifically for me, I'm an introvert. So I have to work really hard. I have to intentionally, it doesn't come naturally for me to step into conversations, to step into relationships. There's a lot of work going on in my head building up to those conversations. So I really need to have some scaffolding. I really need to have a clear, like, this is my way to do this to help me step into this, because it's not natural to me. I'm not the life of a party. I'm not the one who can go around and have, little conversations with everybody. I really have to work hard at those things. So I think it's really important for me practically to kind of think through all of this. But I think even theologically, what you hit on there is, one, God is a relational God. Like, he has called us into relationship with himself. He is relational in himself. So there is one God in three persons. So Father, Son, Holy Spirit, who are relating to one another. From eternity past to eternity future, are relating to one another. And God made us to be in relationship with him and to be in relationship with other people that he has created. And so, because God is such a relational God, because we are made for relationships, it's so important for us to understand, like, how to do that and what it looks like, and how do we honor God in our relationships. And as someone who is an introvert, like, if I'm brutally honest, like, I would like to not have any more. Like, there's just times where I'm just like, I don't want more people. I can't handle it. But that's not an option for me as a believer. That's not an option for me as someone who follows Jesus. Like, I am called to that. That's who I was created to be. And so for me to live truly human and to live truly as a human loving Jesus, I need to be in relationships with other people. And so, yeah, so that's why I think it's so important for us to kind of talk through this,
Right.
and give people just a really clear, hopefully practical path forward and how to make that happen.
Well, I will say, I think you are a naturally good listener. And some of your weakness, what you view as weaknesses, I actually think may be your strengths, in that because you love people, you intentionally are trying to do things outside of your comfort zone. Like when you went to a certain place vocationally to reach people with the gospel. I mean, there's a lot of intentionality and things that do not fit what you just described, because you love people and because you love Jesus, which is evident. And I think I just wanted to reference the Trinity briefly, which we've covered, but we just want to start here. God is relational. He always has been, from the beginning of time, in fact, from all eternity, as three persons in one God. Father's not the Son, Son is not the Father is not the Holy Spirit. They are all one in godness, or in essence. So we want to affirm that God is relational, and he created us then to bear his image and be relational creatures as part of his kingdom. And so when we consider relationships, we want to consider that people are made in God's image. People matter. And one thing you're emphasizing here, I think, is the value of other people, that they bear the image of God. Does that play into this?
Yeah, it does. Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that we're going to talk about in just a bit is like seeing people first and foremost as who they are, and who they're made to be. And so, like, one of the things I think it's important for us to realize in this is that, like, we are commanded by Jesus to say, like, the world will know that we are his disciples by our love for one another.
Mm-hmm.
But the issue I think that we face too often is we're not in relationship, meaningful relationships with neighbors, with
Mm-hmm.
coworkers, with family members who don't know Jesus, in a way for them to even see that we are followers of Jesus. So they can't really take notice of um, of what God has called us to do if we're not in a relationship with Him. And some of that's really hard, because I think as Christians, one of the things that makes us unique as Christians is there's a Jesus that we have in common, and there's a mission that we have in common, so that I can go to different places, different churches, different parts of the world, people I've never met before, and connect with them fairly quickly over those two things, over that I
Mm-hmm.
love Jesus, you love Jesus, we're on the same mission together. I don't know you at all, I don't know your background, but we connected in over those things. The difficulty with some of our neighbors and friends and so on is they don't know Jesus. So that thing that unites believers doesn't exist with unbelievers. So we have to work that much harder to find things to connect with them.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
if you have I want to share the Luke passage. Do you have that
Yep,
one
I
that kind
do.
of pop up?
I do. Yep. Before we jump into Luke, you did have
Yeah,
a kind of a tee up. We don't
yeah,
want to see people as targets, and I wanted to
yeah,
cover that. So I
yeah,
have her, and we don't want to see our neighbors as targets. Can you speak to this just briefly, and then we
yeah,
will jump over to Luke here.
yeah. I think it's important first and foremost that our goal is not just simply proclamation. Our goal is not simply presentation of the gospel. Our goal is not simply to mark something off of a list. I did a thing. People are image bearers first and foremost. And so we don't want to see people as targets. I just got done reading a book. It's called Theo of Golden. I forget the author's name. It's a New York Times bestseller. It's about a guy who goes into a coffee shop, and the local artist has painted a bunch of pictures of the townspeople, and this guy is slowly buying those pictures and then gifting them to the people.
Oh,
And the
wow.
thing that was the beautiful thing about that story, it's written from a Christian perspective. It's not a Christian book, but it's definitely a Christian perspective, is that he got to see, before he got to meet any of the people and hear their stories and all the things, he saw the value in their picture, the value in them first and foremost,
Mhm.
and then got to get to know them. I think one of the things that we've done really poorly, I think, as Christians, is we've labeled people first as a thing, and then we try to go at them based on that. That person is a Republican or a Democrat. That person is a Bengals fan or a Browns fan. That person
Right.
is a liberal or a progressive. That person
Mhm.
is gay or straight, whatever it is.
Mhm.
We put a label on them first, and then we try to figure them out or fix them or whatever it is, instead of coming at every person as first and foremost, they're made in the image of God with value, with dignity, made for relationship with God. And so that then permeates every conversation we have, so that when we
Right.
disagree, when we have come up against a wall, we can then go back to, well, wait, they're made in the image of God. They're made with dignity. I need to honor how God has made them, as human beings, and not tear them down or try to do all those things. And so, yeah, it's super important that, and people will get a sense very quickly, your sincerity, your genuineness. They'll know pretty quickly that this
Right.
person really doesn't care about me. They're just trying to shove a message down my throat. They're just
Mhm.
trying to get me to change a behavior. They don't
Or
genuinely care
they
about
don't
me.
like me. They don't think I'm good enough.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah,
I have lived both sides of this coin, and I've seen it good and bad in terms of evangelism and relationships. But you're 100% right. And what I really love about what you're saying is, yesterday we were at a coffee shop, and I won't name the one, but there's a nice younger woman. She's younger, 20s probably, and she's the manager. And we go there quite a bit now because it's on our bike path. Don't give it away. And she has a rainbow. Everything's rainbow. And she's nice. And one of my daughters said, "Well, is that way with the rainbow?" And I said, "Well, honey, hold on. She's made in the image of God. That's probably like in her view, that's what love looks like. Like she thinks that's kind and accepting. And you can understand where she's coming from. And you have to see her as a person, not as a problem. And
Yeah.
identifying people by what they're for or against is really not good as Christians because you end up going right at their identity. And
Yeah.
in our culture, identity is everything, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm trying to reach someone that's in that specific area, guess what I'm not going to start with?
Yeah.
Hey, I see you like rainbows. Can we
Yeah.
talk about God's judgment? Like, so you have to love people. And I think that's what you're getting at. Is that
Yeah.
fair?
Yeah. And all of those, whatever their identity that they're trying to portray, is secondary, third, 90 things
Mhm.
down the list sometimes as
Not
their
who they are, right?
primary identity as made in the image of God,
Mhm.
for God, and really. So it's all of those. We'll get to those things. So don't like
Mhm.
act like who
Right.
they
They don't
are
exist.
doesn't matter.
Right.
But first and foremost, they're made in the image of God, and they
Right.
deserve honor. They
Right.
deserve respect. In the same way that we, as believers, we want to protect life in the womb, because before we even know what this baby is going to believe or do or act or
Mhm.
whatever, because the baby is made in the image of God, the same thing for that mid-20s young woman. She's just as valuable, just as important
Mhm.
to God, as this baby in the womb. So we need
Amen.
to show the same dignity and respect, to this person as well. So yeah.
Amen. And all of that was in relation to your point. But sometimes, and now this is not an endorsement of this movie. We're not saying go watch it. This is my fault. If you don't like it, text Ryan Kaza. That's Ryan Kaza with complaints. But sometimes we view people kind of like this. So he's really determined to go get him,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we got to trust God in that. Sometimes I think why
Was that
we
your
view
teaser trailer for? Was that your teaser trailer for Paul Blart Mart?
Mall Cop
Mart
3.
3.
Yes.
Sorry.
And the thing is, I think we view people as targets, and where trusting the sovereignty of God is really helpful because you can know that while you're being faithful and doing what you can, God is going to accomplish His purposes. So you don't have to get angry, you don't have to get frustrated or impatient. And really, our tactics, and this is where I think you really shine, Andy, is you need to come from a place of loving people. You gotta love people or you probably shouldn't be speaking.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, the Luke, verses I have right here,
Yeah.
um, right here, I've got 'em. I
Yeah.
added, 33 and 5 just so we have a little context here.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, the point of this passage, so at 34, they're coming against Jesus for who he is. And 34 says, the Son of Man comes eating and drinking. And you say, look at him, a glutton, a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. So, the reason I have that verse is I think sometimes we can congregate towards our believing friends, which is good, which is right. We're expected to do that. But then we can use the excuse of, like, I don't have anything in common with my unbelieving friends. I don't have anything in common with my neighbors. So it's really hard to connect with them. I don't know what to do to talk about them. And I just go to this verse to say, of any two relationships that are infinitely different, it's Jesus and us. Um, and Jesus never hesitated in stepping into relationships with us. And so using the excuse of they're just too different from me, I don't think we can use that in any kind of real way. And it's the very fact that they are so different from us, is why we need to step into relationship with them, why they need to hear the gospel. And so just wanting to say, listen, we want to be a people who love one another, love each other as fellow believers, sisters and brothers in Christ. But we also want to be known as people who spend time with those who are vastly different from us. Those that you would scratch your head to think, I don't understand how this is working and why you would do this and why you keep fighting for this, but because we love each other desperately. And so I just want to not use that as an excuse for us. And because I don't know if you have the 2 Corinthians passage too, just want to pop that up.
I do. I was going to save that for the end, but we're going to
we're good. Let's pop it up now. I think we see this like what drives us ultimately. We're new creations. This says, if any was in Christ, a new creation, the old is past, the new has come. All this is from God, who through Christ reconciled us to himself and then gave us. So two things are happening. One, he's reconciling us, putting us in right relationship with himself, and then gave us the ministry of reconciliation to build relationships with others so that they also can be built in relationship with God. And that is in Christ, God is reconciling the world to himself, not counting their trespasses against them, and entrusting to us the message of reconciliation. So twice he's already said this ministry. And then again, we're ambassadors for Christ, making his appeal through us. We implore you on behalf of Christ, be reconciled to God. For our sake, he made him to be sin who knew no sin, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. And so, like, the question simply asked, if you look at 2 Corinthians there, is who is this for? It's for anybody who's new in Jesus, anybody who's a new creation. This is the expectation on you.
Yeah.
Build relationships. You've been reconciled. Go tell other people there's a path forward for you. There's a way for you to know God as well. And so, so that's kind of what drives us in this is our love for God, God's love through us to love others, and that we ultimately want to glorify God in building relationships. And so, and I always tell, like, especially when I've taught tons of missions classes before and talking to people about how to share their faith and all those kinds of things. And just reminding people at the end of the day, this is about loving God. This is about loving the glory of God and wanting to see him glorified. This isn't first and foremost about loving people.
Right.
Because we're hard to love.
Pleaser.
We're hard to love. We can be people pleasers. We'll shift the message. We'll get very frustrated. We'll give up, all of those things. I'm as an introvert, I would, like I said, I would quit up on people more often than not. But we're called because God is glorious and God is worthy of our love and care to share relationships.
Amen.
Share him with people. So yeah.
1 Corinthians 10:31 is what you're referencing there. Whether you eat or drink, do all to the glory of God. And an ambassador is somebody that represents another nation, right? They represent that nation.
Yeah.
Well, we're citizens of heaven, and we represent the King of Kings. And so whatever we do, we should do for God's glory, which includes relationships and evangelism. And one thing that's difficult about relationships is that not everyone naturally clicks in the church or outside of the church. And I was going to ask us this question coming up here. And what makes a good relationship in the church with neighbors, coworkers, family, strangers? Any of those jump out to you, Andy?
I mean, sincerity makes a good relationship. Selflessness makes a good relationship. Intentionality makes a good relationship. Within the church, it's Jesus-centered, it's gospel-centered, gospel receiving, gospel giving. It's driven by grace and mercy. We've gone through Ephesians. We speak the truth in love to one another. Going through Philippians with my son recently, and just being reminded about like the need for humility, that I look not only to my own interests but to those of others, because that's what Jesus did. And so I think it's those kinds of things make for good relationships. Long suffering and patience make for good relationships too, I think, because we're going to hurt each other. We're going to disappoint one another. And so there's a sense of I'm not going to quit you. I'm not going to give up on you because we disagree or we had a bad day or whatever. I'm going to continue to pursue you and hope and pray that you would do the same to me. Yeah.
And the thing about this, and I'm glad you brought that up, is you need to expect to be offended in the church. Everyone will offend everyone. I mean, if you look at, we're both married. we offend okay, I'll speak for myself. I offend Becky from time to time. I'm sure of
Yeah.
it. If I can't even do that right, what chance do people, in the church have? We're going to offend one another. And I think when 2 Corinthians 5:17-21 talks about this ministry of reconciliation, it really is the heart of the gospel because uh, uh, basically a mediator, Jesus, is going between two parties as the God man and bringing us back together
Yeah.
and working on our behalf. Well, that's still true in our church relationships and our neighbor relationships.
Yeah.
And we have to know how to work through failure and sin. And I know specifically working with the other elders, there have been times where I have blown it. I know it's obvious. Everyone that knows me knows that's true. But you can't just throw in the towel and be like,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
you're out.
Yeah.
Because we all struggle with sin. Some people more noticeably than others.
Yeah.
I think some people hide their sin better, perhaps. And I'm not accusing anyone. I'm just would you be able to speak to how to go, because the Bible gives us clear direction on how to go to people when there's an offense or an issue, but it's not to clobber them and it's not to say you did this wrong. How would you approach that? Because I think you're pretty good at that.
I mean, first, it's prayerfully you're walking in the Spirit, and so that prayerfully you're regularly asking the Lord to examine your heart to make sure there's no unhealthiness in us, no sin in us. And then when those things come to light, and they will because they're there, that we're humble, we seek forgiveness. I think it's really important that we are clear in our offense, like not, hey, I'm sorry you were hurt, or I'm sorry this.
Oh, right. Like
I'm
blaming them. It's
I
like an
said this
actual,
thing.
like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry you are too emotional.
Yeah, sorry you're too sensitive
Yeah,
for
boy,
this.
that's
Sorry you
just
were having
tough.
a bad day. Yeah, whatever. But it's like, I'm sorry I said this. I'm sorry I did this. Will you forgive me for
Right.
this? I think it's really important. So clarity, humility is really important. Recognizing, and it all comes back to just who I am in relationship with God. I am forgiven, so I forgive. I've been shown grace, so I show grace. I have been shown patience, so I show patience. I desperately need all of this. I'm in the middle of my sanctification, just like you are. We
Mhm.
both need to help each other with that. So,
Right. Yeah, I like the analogy that the church is a hospital for sick people,
yeah,
not a monastery for religious people type of thing. I think that's a danger because we could all find fault with each other and with the church, and you really want to be a good finder. And I really like these verses. I think this really summed up the point of this topic for me. You had these verses, but
yeah.
it's Paul talking about how desirous he is of the church in Thessalonica or Thessaloniki. How do you see? You're the expert here.
I don't know. Whatever
I
you
don't
say
know
is
either.
good for me.
Either way, Thessalonians.
Yeah,
But his attitude is paternal and it's patriarchal, and there's a little bit of Jewish kind of wordplay going on here in the Greek
yeah,
and that sort of thinking. But the point is, this is Paul's attitude, right? And I think this is an area that you're really good at. Can you read these verses? Can you see those?
yeah. So being affectionately desirous of you, we were ready to share with you not only the gospel of God, but also our own selves, because you had become very dear to us. For you remember, brothers, our labor and toil, we work night and day, that we might not be a burden to any of you while we proclaim to you the gospel of God.
So there, Paul is clearly referencing he didn't ask for money for them for preaching.
Yeah.
That's one of his points. But the heart of it is he loves them, and he didn't just share the gospel. And this is an area where I think you have a valid point. I don't think it negates preaching, but I think it's a valid point where he shared more than just the gospel. What did he share there?
And he shared his life, so people knew Paul, not just the message he was proclaiming. They knew the person Paul. They knew his likes and dislikes. They knew his frustrations. They knew his joys. They knew his favorite foods. They knew Paul. And so I think it was really, really important for him in that to say, hey, we didn't just come, scream through town. Here's the message, off to the next town. Like, we invested our lives so that you could see, and I think it's important, so that you could see that the gospel message we're proclaiming actually matters to my life, actually makes a difference in my relationships. It makes a difference in what I eat and drink. It makes a difference in how I spend my money. It makes a difference in how I struggle with sorrow and grief and all those things, that it actually matters. It's not just a thing I'm trying to sell you. It is my life.
Right.
My life. Yeah.
Yeah. This is where you get the term sincera, without wax, where you're just who you are. And the Bible says that the light exposes darkness. And I think one of the challenges we have to be careful of in the church is, number one, expecting people to be Jesus. Only Jesus is Jesus. But also expecting to find our fulfillment and our identity in even the strongest local church is going to be a mixture of truth and error, and of some sin in areas that just, there's no perfect church. There are, top tier Orthodox issues, and then there's second tier, third tier. And what a lot of people do what I've seen is they take those second tier issues and they become numero uno. And then you get fighting, and those are not things to fight over. Would you agree?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. We need to keep the important things, the main things, and show love and grace and charity in the other things and all things. And so I think it's important for us to walk with humility and to love each other well there. Yeah.
Right. Our next point here, we're going to get more into the application.
Yeah.
Can you see this question here?
Yeah. What makes a good relationship? Yeah.
Great.
Community, different giftings. Yeah. All those things. Yeah.
Yeah. So how would you see a good relationship? What are some of the things? I have some steps for building relationships next, but what do you think makes a good relationship?
Openness, sincerity, honesty with one another, intentionality. All of those things. I think that I kind of mentioned before, of just seeing the value in other people is super, super important there. And I think it's recognizing that we're not our own, and we need help. And so a person who say, I need Jesus to help me as often as possible. I want to reflect Jesus as often as possible. I think as human beings in relationship with God through Christ, that we need to reflect him as often as we can. So, yeah.
And I think humility is one of the core ideas there, because when you consider others more valuable than yourself, and that's the Philippians theme there, you really start to say, maybe I'm looking at this the wrong way. In fact, when people give you feedback, sometimes their feedback might be totally off base. They might be totally wrong, but it's helpful to look and say, is there something here that could be right, or that I should consider? Because sometimes that's true. And that way you're not automatically defensive when people come to you with a problem. Because let's be honest, as leaders in a church, when people come to you, it's usually not thinking like, how can I help Andy today, and Joe or John or whoever, and how can I bring this up in a way that's helpful and useful? It's usually like, I can't believe X, Y, Z, and it can be maybe not always the greatest presentation, but it still means we should be prepared to listen, and slow to speak, slow to take offense. Those things. Practical steps in relationship building. This is the good stuff here. What of these do you want to focus in on?
I want to blow through all of them real quick. So if you're watching this, take your time, pause it, reflect on it. And more importantly, follow through and kind of think and brainstorm some ways to do this. So just kind of as you think about relationships, again, we don't want to just say, go do it, because that's not helpful, especially to folks who are like me, who that's really hard and scary to do that. So here's just some ways to kind of help practically in building relationships. One of the things I think is really important, it goes back to caring deeply about people, is to not assume you already know. I think good relationships is about asking lots of questions, that you are more driven by the other person and getting to know them than you are necessarily presenting your ideas and what you want to know. Because at the end of the day, I think the gospel is, I believe wholeheartedly that the gospel is true for everybody, but we don't know how it's specifically true for everybody until we ask questions. The questions they're asking, the things they're struggling with, the big ideas that they're wrestling with. And so we need to get to know them. I know that some people are saying, hey, we need to do one of these the digital discipleships on cults and different religions and so on. And I think that can be helpful, but I think at the end of the day, it's actually a little more harmful to get tons and tons of information. I think the best way to get to know our Muslim neighbor, our Jehovah's Witness neighbor, our Mormon neighbor, our atheist neighbor is just ask a lot of questions. What do you believe?
Can I hop in there for just a second, Andy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this is one thing I love knowing about all these weird things. But the mistake that you can make just because somebody's under that umbrella doesn't mean they even understand that thing. And now you're attacking them on whatever, and they don't even understand that. So you've made an assumption that starts you off on a bad foot because you don't really even know what they believe because they don't really believe what you just said.
Yeah. And that's one of the things people make assumptions about me all the time. One, once people find out I'm a pastor, everything changes. Everything gets awkward. It's weird. They assume a lot about me. They find out I would go to a Southern Baptist church, like all of these. I'm like, just talk to me, ask me questions about. So I think it's really important that we don't assume, just ask tons and tons of questions. Next, I think it's really important that we're praying for people, praying for them by name. And again, we can't pray for them by name without introducing ourselves. And so some of the best thing we can do is just to walk across the street to our neighbor. Hey, I'm Andy. What's your name? How's it going today? Just so we're praying for people specifically, and we're brainstorming like, how can I spend more time? So again, this comes back to me. I'm not naturally drawn towards people. I have to think about today and plan for what will it look like for me to engage with a neighbor, to engage with a coworker, to engage with a family member. Do I need to make a phone call? Do I need to literally walk across the street? Do I need to bake some cookies today and take them over? Like, what does it look like?
Yes, you do. Family? And one thing you guys don't know about Andy, he's actually a really good cook. And so please bake those cookies. We're not for burning cookies. Yes, good ideas.
Yeah. So think through those ways. And as a family, as your household, what will it look like to step in to people's lives? And we can't talk about, I won't talk a lot, avoid the bait and switch. People need to know that you genuinely care for them, whether or not they're listening, whether or not they agree with you, whether or not they receive the gospel, whether or not they receive Jesus. They need to know that you care deeply about them, and that you love them for who they are and care about them for who they are, not just the message that you're trying to give to them. So don't come off with the sense that, hey, I'm here. Once you say no to the gospel, once you say no to this, I'm out of your life forever. But they need to know that you genuinely care about them regardless of it, of that. So being a blessing, I think, is really important. Don't be the neighbor that other neighbors talk about behind your back. That guy's always mean. That guy's always grumpy. That guy's always, yelling at kids to get off his lawn, or I don't know, whatever it is. But that we're a blessing to people. So
can I jump in really quick? That is hilarious. So we were at Josiah's graduation party just for a little bit, and we're leaving, and I'm like, this guy has the best grass. I'm old. I noticed the grass. I'm like, I like the good grass. But on his yard, it said, keep off the grass. And I just thought, oh, man, like you're sending like such a bad message. So don't be that guy.
So, and look for ways to serve your neighbors. Look for ways to serve. Can I help pick up sticks? Can I notice that you haven't been outside for a while. Can I help in some capacity? Whatever it is. So look for ways to be a blessing. Being a witness, I think, is really important. Again, we're not creating a message. We're not trying to figure this out on our own. We're just simply, as Mark 5:19 says, this is the guy who was the
demoniac.
Demoniac that was healed of all of these demons that was destroying his life, wanted to go with Jesus. Jesus said, no, I need you to stay back. And he said, I want you to go home to your friends, tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he's had mercy on you. So when people ask me my definition of evangelism, I quote Mark 5:19. This is what it is. I say, this is what God has done for me. This is how he's shown me mercy, and he wants to do the same for you. And so we're a witness when we're spending time with Jesus, when we're recognizing the gifts that God has given us, the blessings he has given to us. We just simply share those with others. A really practical thing, which I think sounds too simple to even say, but just remember people's names. Like if I've ever called you champ or buddy or pal or good to see you, like I've forgotten your name. And so like, and that's on me. So I think it's really important, genuinely, our name is connected to who we are and our identity. And when someone remembers our name, it shows that they genuinely care about us. And so when you meet a neighbor, when you meet a friend or a coworker, remember their name. One thing, and I'll give a trick, if you've noticed this in me too, when I meet you for the first time, I will generally try to say your name 2 or 3 different times. Like I'll say, hey, John, it's nice to meet you, John. I'm so glad that you were here today, John. This is my wife, Katie, John. Like, so, and that's for me, because it'll be really easy for me to go one ear and out the other and not remember and go back, oh gosh, what was that guy's name again? And so just remembering people's names is really, really important.
May I jump in there too? I did a lot of networking in my financial advisor days. And one of the tricks, okay, and people correct me on this all the time. In fact, Joe sometimes I think maybe gets a little irritated, but if I'm standing between 2 people, I will almost always introduce them to each other. He's like, we already know each other. I'm like, well, yes, but sometimes people forget each other's names. So it's a way to not embarrass people. So like if you're standing there saying, hey guys, this is my friend Andy. And you're like, yeah, we've already met. That's okay. You want to be a conversation helper if you're in a group like that. And if you see people on the outskirts, invite them and say, hey, come over here. Let me introduce you to so-and-so. And look for ways to make people feel included. When you're standing there, include people, bring people in. And it's also okay to say this, okay, rather than blow their name, which I did yesterday to someone that I really like at our post office. I called her the wrong name. And I was like, I am so sorry. But you can say, hey, I'm so sorry. Can you help remind me, what is your first name again? And people will tell you. You don't have to you can, they know we're limited. They forgot your name already too. And that's okay. But I really liked that point that you had there.
Yeah. I think it's important for us to remember conversations that we've had. One, to pray so that we know how to pray for those things when we go walk away. 2, again, it shows care for someone, that you are actually paying attention. And so one practical thing with that, if you're talking to a neighbor, coworker, friend, whatever it is, keep a notebook of, hey, I talked with John across the street today. He shared his aunt is having surgery, or he's having a hard time with a coworker. Remember to bring that up next time you talk. So the next time you talk, you say, hey, how's your aunt doing? I've been praying for them. Or you shared about this hard thing at work. How's that going for you? It shows people that you genuinely care. Next, I think it's really important that we live among the people. I think we can get into our bubbles really quickly. We can just kind of hide out in our houses. So think about ways that you can intentionally be in the lives of your neighbors. So maybe it's sports leagues, maybe it's a movie night, maybe you go to the same park, whatever it is, but you're thinking about how can I not just expect people to come to me, but how can I intentionally be where people are, so that I can build relationships and get to know them for that. And then finally, I think, especially in our social media world, remember the one conversation concept. So basically what I mean by that is everything you say now is fair game. And so if I am a person who goes on Facebook and I'm blasting people left and right on Facebook, and I'm having these arguments or whatever it is on Facebook or Twitter, and then I go to my neighbor and try to say, hey, Jesus loves you, and I would really like to get to know you, they've already read my Instagram post. They already know who I am. And so just basically what I mean by that is that we're living the same everywhere. It's because people are paying attention to us everywhere. And so what I say online, what I say to this other neighbor, assume that the neighbor I'm talking to is going to share that with the other neighbor. And so I don't want to go back and say, man, that guy's a real jerk, and I'm glad you're not like him, and whatever. Assume that's going to be shared. And not in a sense of trying to hide and but that we're people of integrity, that we're people who say what we mean, we live it out, that when we have a conversation with someone, they've already heard it, quite frankly. It's already the same in that. And so just kind of remember being thoughtful, being mindful of how we're talking, because it's going to get back to those people in that idea. So yeah. So I think those are just some practical things for us. Yeah.
For those of you math nerds, we see integer is a whole number, and integrity means a whole person. And you don't want to be a hypocrite, which is a play actor that wears a mask. We're all
Sure.
going to struggle with sin and things like that, but you want to be a person that people trust and can go to, which I think this next section is really helpful. How
Yeah.
do we ask good questions? How do we become more conversational?
Yeah. These are something I kind of touched on them, but I really want to drive these points home for us and our relationships. We desperately need to be good listeners. And I think a good listener is someone who is not simply waiting for their turn to talk. A good listener is not someone who's quiet until it's time to speak. A good listener is someone who is actively engaged in what the other person is saying, to encourage them, to take it to heart, to engage them. I think is super, super important for us to be people who are actively listening, drawing things out. And the more you listen, the more you'll be able to connect later on, the more you'll be able to um, have that conversation again. And the more you'll be able to sense this is where the gaps are, this is where their questions are, this is where their longings are, this is where their struggles are, this is where the gospel is meaningful to them, and not just assume here's boom a presentation, swallow it down, but to say, oh, here's where they're actually at in this, and here's where I can put that in. So listen well, paying attention. Again, goes with it. So you're listening to what they're saying. You're following along in the conversation. You're not, I think a lot of times we have conversations like this with people, like we're like, all right, here's the, yeah.
One of my pet
Oh,
peeves,
yeah,
Andy.
yeah, yeah,
Can I jump in on that?
yeah, go for it, dude. Yeah.
So Ron Clark, I discovered him too late in life, but he had some great teaching tips. Went to the inner city and taught in Harlem, and they made his life into a movie with Matthew Perry. And there's some bad language, so not necessarily recommending it, but it's really good.
Yeah.
And one of the things I took away from that was the yes, ma'am, yes, sir, eye contact.
Yeah.
And it's called empathetic listening. You don't want to be manipulative.
Yeah.
Asking questions. Hey, would it be all right if I answered that for you, or could I give you some perspective on that? Maybe ask permission to answer their questions, but
Yeah.
don't just plow in with the answer. And I've even noticed sometimes on online conversations like this, if we're talking and I'm like looking over here, it
Yeah.
sends a signal that I'm not interested in anything Andy's saying. If I'm looking
Yeah.
over here, I'm not interested in Andy. And
Yeah.
we want to be caring, not to be manipulative, but because we genuinely care about
Yeah.
what you're saying. So I thought that was a really good one
Yeah.
on the listening skills there.
Yeah. And with, I think it's important too that the listening skills, we read the person that we're talking to. Don't just keep talking if they're not engaged with you. It's okay to be like, to end the conversation. It's okay to change the subject. It's okay to say, hey, we're not tracking. That's fine. We're good. Hope you have a great day today. Whatever it is. So don't just continually cornering people and keeping them there, but to read them and to say what I'm saying they're not tracking with, or they're disagreeing with, or I can ask another question that maybe I need to clarify with them, or whatever it is. And so it just shows that I really care about you and not just simply presenting something to you with that. We're talking to parents who at a park who are distracted because they're trying to pay attention to their kids. That's maybe not the time to have a deep conversation. Maybe it's hey, let's go play with your kids today. You want to grab coffee some other time. You want to come over for dinner. You want to whatever. And so just being mindful of those things. Mm-hmm. And then don't be the guy that's only always talking about religion, only always talking about faith, and only always, and I know that sounds weird to say that, like we don't always have to talk about Jesus, the person of Jesus, but we need to be people where Jesus impacts every area of our life. And so
I think if I could speak to that, I've made that mistake for sure. And the thing is, what you're saying is important, because if people think that you're just trying to push something that they quite frankly don't understand and think is a little weird, then they're going to mentally check out. Now, we know God is sovereign, but you have to treat people like real people. And
Yeah.
this is a pet peeve of mine. And you're the head of the greeter team, and this is not geared at Covenant or you or anyone else. Disclaimer. But
Yeah.
I cannot stand when the first question somebody asks you is, so what do you do?
Yeah.
You're like new to a church, or where do you go to church? It's like, why do you, what? Hello, my name is John. I am John. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Like, I like donuts. That would have been a softer sell.
Yeah.
I think we try to go for these like pre-programmed questions that really come across as kind of rude and like you're trying to put people in a ladder. And I don't like the what do you do question. What do you think? Is that crazy? What do you think?
No, it's one, because it's a dangerous question for a couple of reasons. One, then it places your occupation with your identity, and that's not
Mhm.
a healthy thing to do.
Right.
Two, you might be talking to someone who's struggling with unemployment.
That could be.
That's why they're there at church, because they feel like they're worthless because they don't. And the first thing you ask is, "What do you do?" You're reinforcing some of their struggles already, and it's, again, I get it. It often is a throwaway question. How are you? How's the weather? Like, what do you do? Like, and so there's a little bit of, not intentionally, but there's a little bit of insincerity with it, because it's just, you're asking that question not because you're genuinely interested, but you want to move the conversation along, kind of a thing. And so I think it's really important. But then again, but we're followers of Jesus. We're naturally going to talk about Jesus. We should. We're witnesses. But I also want to talk about the sports teams I like, and the music I like, and my lawn, and like whatever it is.
It's okay. Yeah.
All of those things will
Glorify
eventually
God.
be back to, I'm thinking about my music in terms of who I am in a relationship to Christ. I'm thinking about the value of my lawn based on.
Well, God's great. He makes the grass grow. He sends the rain on the just and the unjust.
Yeah,
The heavens declare the glory of God. I think one thing with the questions, I worked at Dave Ramsey, and they would train people on these sales tactics. And if somebody asks a question, you ask a question. You don't answer. You just, and I personally, this is me. I can't stand that. If I ask you a question, and then you've seen this in me, if people don't answer the question, I get frustrated, and I'm not good at it because I feel like they're deflecting. And it's really, I think, a form of potentially either bad speaking patterns or just being dishonest. Now, there is a time to ask a question if you don't understand, but a lot of times we use questions as a weapon. That they call it the Socratic method. And I think it's kind of manipulative. Now, that's just my opinion. That's kind of like a personal struggle of mine. Do you think that's true or untrue?
No, I think we need to continue to build into people to understand what they're about, to show people grace and asking those questions, and to know we're all, Proverbs talks about there's a deepness in all of us as humans.
Man of understanding will draw it out. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that we, instead of like, you're bad or you're wrong or you're whatever, it's, how can I kind of take the onus on myself in that to say, how can I ask a better question? How can I dig a little bit deeper? Is this a moment where I just need to say, all right, I'm getting it.
Yeah, that's true. Just let it go.
Let it go. And
I don't like letting it go
later. Yeah. And so, yeah.
Good points. So good questions are powerful. But care about the person. And I think this is one of your strengths. We've noticed in you, and I think rightfully so, one of your strengths is counseling, wisdom, listening. Those are all connected strengths of yours. So we're very grateful for that. We have a couple things to tie it up. Then I have our fun question. This is one of our last points here. What does this say, sir?
Yeah, living on mission, with intentionality. It doesn't happen accidentally. You be intentional. You need to plan and even practice. And I don't mean practice in the sense of like, I'm going to go out and on this person, practice these conversations and use these words and just use them. I think it just means that we get better as we do it more. The more you do it, the more you ask these questions, the more you're intentional, the better you get at this. And I've been a part of an evangelism class too, that one of their themes of it was, let's fail forward together. So like, we're going to make mistakes.
I have a PhD in that class.
Yeah. We're going to do it wrong sometimes, let's dust ourselves off. Let's pick ourselves back up. Let's try it again.
Hmm.
Let's try to do it differently this time. Let's show grace. Let's apologize. Let's work on
Hmm.
from that. But all of that happens intentionally. Especially, I just want to keep coming back to this point, especially for people where relationship building is hard, when you're an adult, when you're a little introverted, when it doesn't come naturally, it has to come from intentionality and planning. I am so grateful for my wife. She's very good at this. She drives me. I would tend towards isolation if it were just up to me. She really pushes me. And so we need other people in our lives, maybe not our spouse, but another believer, a brother or sister in Christ who kind of pushes us a little bit and says, hey, how are you getting out? Did you meet that neighbor? How are you praying for them? How'd that conversation go? Like we're in this together with one another, not to shame, not to make it legalistic at all, but just to continue to encourage each other as the days are evil, that we're just kind of saying, let's spur each other on, let's move forward, and being intentional in that. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, exhortations. It's why I think you and I get along well, or at least your kindness makes us get along well. We both want to reach people. We're both evangelistic in that sense, and you don't. But the thing is, one guy at our old church, I would always talk about evangelism. He goes, "Here we go again," and I realized on
Yeah.
that day I had become that guy
Yeah.
where everything was my interest and you're not considering others, you're not thinking
Yeah.
about others,
Yeah.
and you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And you're failing forward, and that's okay. Success in this relationship, evangelism, community, it's not going to be what you think it is. It's going to be a series of progress and error and progress.
Yeah.
And what
Well,
happens, sometimes people just shut it down. Well, a church full of hypocrites, I don't need it. Well, we got room for one more. Like now,
yeah.
hypocrite in the biblical sense would be an unbeliever, but in the sense that we're not perfect, yes, of course. That's
Yeah.
why we need Jesus and look to Jesus. But
Yeah.
it is now time for the fun portion of this. Are you ready, sir?
Yes. So ready.
Okay.
I was born
Uh,
for this.
so Scrabble. You're familiar with Scrabble. The goal
Uh-huh.
is to make words, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm officially old now. Old spot verified. And there's these terms these days, and I was hanging out with Erskine for a few days. He uses a lot of young people language, and quite frankly, I don't like it. So if you were the Scrabble king for a day, you
Uh-huh.
could cancel. Now I can define these if we need to. You
No,
can
no, I'm good.
cancel one teen cool word. I don't know.
Yeah.
What would you call these? It's not really slang. I don't know. Are you familiar with these words?
Oh yeah. 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 I use them all the time.
Which
Please tell me to stop. Yeah.
which one would you cancel?
I've got Riz. Yeah, I know. This time with you was fire, John. I really appreciate it. With no cap on what we said today. It's all truth. Yeah, I'm not trying to aura farm anybody here. This is just genuinely who I am. Probably I don't know. I like yeet a lot. It's just a fun word to say.
It's hilarious. Yeah, I'm for
I
keeping
love it
yeet.
so much.
Mhm.
I think maybe fire, because
Mhm.
it's one of those words that everything can't be fire. Like everything can't be good.
Mhm.
Things are bad, and so it's okay to say those things. So maybe that, because maybe it feels a little overused.
Yeah, overused for
I mean, I
sure.
like fire. I like the genuine. I like
You love
literal
fire. You're
so
actually
I
a
like
fire.
starting.
So you're
I'm a
I
pyromaniac.
call you a firebug.
Yeah.
Is that I
So
don't want to
maybe
call you
it's
worse.
yeah. You can. Maybe it's because it's being
Yeah, they're stealing your
appropriated in a
baby.
different way. That's right.
Yeah,
That's
they're abusing
our
it.
word. That's we can't. Yeah.
They're abusing it. I would cancel banger. And I told Erskine
Yeah.
for the world to know it's canceled. Part of the
Okay.
reason that has actually a bad connotation in its etymology. Like it's a sexual term. So
Yeah.
I don't see how that, like, can't we just say I liked that? I appreciated that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm canceling that one. So you're
There you go.
canceling fire, and
Yeah.
I'm canceling banger. I have one more for you. Bonus round.
Right.
You get to cancel one superhero. I think you like movies, right? I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You get to cancel one. What would you
Yeah.
cancel?
I hated Eternals. I hated the Marvels. Those last superhero movies were just not
Okay. I don't
great.
even know what that is.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah, you're
Okay.
fine.
Didn't miss it.
It's better off that way. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know which one I would cancel, but it would you know what? Don't hate me, ladies. It'd probably be where they tried to do like the Wonder Woman or Supergirl, I guess, is coming out. And it's just personally, I really prefer my heroes to be men, strong, protecting women and family. I just feel like it's not that women can't beat me up. Okay, we know who you are, and you're at Covenant, and we could point you like that one for sure. Just kidding. But the point is, I just don't. I think they're trying to like reprogram what bravery is and roles and things like that. So I would probably cancel those. Don't cancel me. I'm sorry. Any closing thoughts, sir? Great job today.
No, just, I mean, this is all about Jesus. It's from him, it's for him, it's through him. And so, like, I know this might be scary. It is scary. People are hard, people hurt you, people are weird, all of those things. Follow Christ's example and do it in the strength that he gives you so that in the end he gets the glory.
Amen. Do everything for the glory of God. Thank you guys so much for being here. If you haven't yet, repent and believe the gospel. Come on, what you doing? We'll send the Terminator, this one from the second, the one that's more dangerous than Arnold. If you don't believe the God, just kidding. That was the whole point. But we do care about you. We love you. If you're interested, check out Covenant Church in Petersburg. We'd be glad to have you. And we have this thing called VUS coming up next week. So if you can make it or register or show up, we'd love to have you. Emerald Crossing is the theme. And Jordan and I are weirdos, but we were listening to the songs and we're like, that sounds like Kristen Getty. And it is Kristen Getty singing the songs, but so even better. So thank you guys so much, and God bless.
Right.